Andy. I think that was insightful and even mind-blowing presentation on what we can expect in the future. May I now please invite my panelists to join me on stage and to engage in a discussion with the audience. Firstly, Bapak I Gusti Putu Suryawirawan, the Director General of the Ministry of Industry. Please join us. Mr. Andy, if you could rejoin us on the stage. Bapak Kuku Kumara is the Secretary General of Gaikindo. And last but not least, my fellow colleague from the media, Pak Munawar Khalik, who is the Group Editor-in-Chief of EMV. So we've had a very, I think, interesting and futuristic maybe presentation by Andy earlier. So I'll ask Andy, the question straight off, It's like you say, it's a great future, but is the future here? How ready are we for this?
So that's a very good question to start off with. So I've been handling this topic of electric cars now for a few years, and very commonly at the end of a lot of heavy discussions with partners, with developers, with customers, what we realize is that everybody agrees what the end result should look like, is that we need a cleaner, greener future. How we get there is always, the obstacle is always the human factor. Question about, are we there yet? For sure, there needs to be room to move in the direction quickly. There needs to be resources. There needs to be consensus that this is the correct step. And there needs to be ultimately resources as well allocated to this direction. But it starts from that first belief that this is the right direction, that this is the goal that we want to achieve. And then from there we can move.
Thank you, Andy. Pak Putu, I think the government's role, of course, in shaping Indonesia's future will be very critical. Not just of course, in your department, Ministry of Industry is going to be very instrumental in helping private sector to also innovate. So, would you maybe tell us a little bit about your low carbon emission project and how that is progressing?
Yeah, thank you, Pak Sweb. Shall I stay here, or I'm going to present some short presentation? How long? 30 minutes?
30 minutes. 3 minutes.
Only 10 minutes. Yeah, Pak Sweb, thank you. I bring my presentation here, and of course, we fully agree with what BMW has been doing, and Ibu Karen and also Pak Andy just explained. But first of all, maybe I have to pretend my colleague in the Ministry of Labor that it will not squeeze the job opportunity as a driver, because and after over a decade, maybe we will not need any driver anymore. We can drive by ourselves, even we cannot drive. Yeah, so it's very important for us in Indonesia. But for us, we see that the CO2 reduction and the e-mobility challenges. Maybe I can give some presentation. It's very important because, okay, we move forward a bit fast. Go to the first slides. If we, I can operate by myself. So if we start the business with business as usual, BAE, BAU, business as usual, then and the 2030, without global support, we have to reduce 29% of carbon, and with the global support, 41%. So it's mean we have to do something. This is our background. And this is the greenhouse gas emission scenario. Transportation share about 26% for the emission. It's very high. And if we do the business as usual, then, as I said, more people will die because of the CO2. And what Andy just explained, just shocked that the cars more than 30 kilograms of CO2 per kilometers if we do nothing. This is data from Pertamina. Shows that transportation is a vital equipment that produce CO2. So we have to do something here. We cannot let the transportation industry grows with the existing condition. But looking at the market, Indonesia in ASEAN domestically grows from time to time. It's growing from time to time. And the four-wheeler and two-wheeler in 2020 will reach 18 million and 87 million respectively. It's very high. Most of them are in Java Island. Yeah? Because 70% of our industry and our business in Indonesia are in Java Island. So we can imagine Java will become more crowded. Even today in Jakarta, always crowded. So in 2020, maybe we have to walk. We cannot use our transportation equipment anymore. And if we look at this case study, UIO is a unit of in operation, and for only four-wheeler. This year we calculate about 13 million cars. Maybe Pak Kuku from Gaikindo will correct me if I'm wrong. It comprises 53 megaton of CO2. So if we business as usual, 2030 will become 114 megaton. So you can imagine Indonesia become more and more dirty air. Yeah? And if we look at the comparison between the passengers vehicle and commercial vehicles, and if we distribute into the age of the vehicle from 1 to 9 years to 10 to 19 years, and also the old one, we have to do something. For the new cars, maybe we can implement the new carbon tax scheme. Now, Ministry of Industry, together with the Ministry of Finance, and also the Ministry of Environment, are working together, and of course with BBBT. I heard that today Mr. Erzi from BBBT should join us here, and I and Mr. Erzi from BBBT are working very close to make a assessment and to provide a draft with Ministry of Finance for a new scheme of taxation. Now, taxation for cars is based on volume of the engine. Yeah. And the future, we have to change the taxation scheme to the carbon produced by the cars. Some people said we can use the fuel consumption, but we believe the lower carbon emission is similar to the more efficient cars. So then we will use the carbon tax base. And for the old cars, for the old vehicle, we have to do something. Whether we limit the cars to be operated, of course not directly to all of Indonesia. Maybe we could start from the high density cities like Jakarta, or in the tourist area, such as in Bali or in Yogyakarta. We can limit the age of the car that may be operated. And based on that idea, we are together with Gaikindo, is trying to get what is the best solution. Because we don't want to sacrifice the industry. Otherwise, we implement a new regulation and all cars should be imported. Yeah, no cars could be produced here. So we don't want to sacrifice the industry. This is also the main criteria, that we will enter this scheme without sacrificing our industry. So that's why this is only the idea. We divide into 3 groups of cars: the new vehicle, matures, and aged vehicle. For the aged vehicle, we had an idea to limit the age of the cars. In many developed countries, even they have a scrapping age. In Singapore, 5 years, then scrap. Yeah. Huh? 10 years. So that's why then you can sell in Riau and also in Aceh. So in Indonesia, you can still use the cars even already 50 years old. Yeah. So this is the situation. Of course, it is still the idea. It's depend on the parliament. We will also bring this idea to our parliament to be discussed. And how about the e-mobility challenges? Of course, we always discuss e-mobility related to electricity. But for us in Indonesia, e-mobility should relates to the lower carbon emissions and more efficiency in operation. So it's mean the driverless cars, it doesn't mean should be an electric cars. You can combine maybe some new cars in based on the gas, maybe CNG bus. We can operate 3 bus with only 1 driver in the front and driverless in the following bus. So we can use such e-mobility to Indonesia. And oh, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, just a minute. Maybe some problems in the power. E-power. We need e-power. Okay, maybe I can continue. So e-mobility challenges which could be see from 4 dimensions. One is the market. Second is the technical, how is the capability in Indonesia, if too much import, then the new regulation will not give clear benefit to our new generation. And of course, the policy is very important, the taxation. Yeah. Now, with our current taxation, four-wheel drive cars is more expensive than two-wheel drives, or 4x4 compared to 4x2. So we have to change this idea. Gaikindo maybe will also explain their study to change the taxation scheme. Otherwise, the electric cars or hybrid cars or any other new cars with 4x4 scheme will be more expensive than the ordinary one. So that's why the policy is very important. And the last one is the infrastructure. We are now working with our standardization units to do some assessment which standard that we are going to adopt. Now, talking about the plug-in hybrid, there are already two standards, yeah, Pak Andy. One is the European standard and also the Japanese standard. So which we are going to follow? Are we going to create our own standards? How about the volume? Is it enough to create our own standards? Many parties said, why should we follow European? Why should we follow Japanese? Let's create our own standard. If there is not enough volume, then everything should import from China. So what for? So yeah, it's better we learn what the developed country has been doing, and then we try to develop in which part we still have the room to grow.